Hi, my name is Stephen for SteadyMaker, and we are going to look at the different operational modes that you have with your SMG. Now we've looked at checking your components out, unboxing. We've checked setting up and pre-balancing your stabilizer. Now, assuming that everything is set up and ready to go, we're going to look at making the most of your stabilizer with the different operational modes. Now, the operational modes are accessed by the large silver button in the front of your main handle. When you plug in your remote, your wired remote, then the silver button won't work, but the wired remote will have the same modes functionality by pressing on the remote button. This will enable the modes just the same as the silver button does on the handle. So when we switch on your stabilizer, you'll hear a series of tones and you'll see the motors tighten up and make your stabilizer straight and level. This means that the motors are powered on and your stabilizer is in what we call default mode. Now, default mode means that it is what we call a semi-follow mode. A semi-follow mode means that it is locked in the pitch axis. This is the up and down tilting of your camera, and it is locked in the roll axis. This means that it maintains a straight and level perspective when you tilt to the right and to the left, but it does follow in the yaw, which means when you turn the handle to the left and to the right, the stabilizer attempts to follow where you are turning. So if you want to pan across to see someone while you're walking around, the stabilizer motor will attempt to follow where you are twisting the handle. So this is what we call semi-follow mode. This is the default mode when you switch on your camera. Now, if for some reason the horizon is drifting or it's not straight and level, you can just press the silver button once and this will return it to your straight and level in all three axes. So you'll hear a little tone when you click the silver button, and then a series of tones means that it's setting that mode. So now it's in that semi-follow mode. If you press it twice, you will get the same, what we call default mode. So this is the semi-follow mode, which means it's locked in the pitch and locked in the roll axis, but it will follow in the yaw. It's just a backup mode, basically. So the first press just tweaks the motors to reset your camera to straight and level. This is good if you've set your camera at a different angle, or if your camera looks like it's drifted, the horizon doesn't look straight, then you just press it once, press it twice, and it returns that semi-follow mode. 3 presses means that it will lock the camera in all 3 axes. This means that it is locked in the pitch, it is locked in the roll, and it's also locked in the yaw. So it doesn't matter where you twist the handle, it will maintain a straight and level in all 3 axes. So we'll try that now. 3 presses. And now if you pick up your stabilizer, you'll see that when you twist the handle, it maintains a straight and level in the yaw and also the roll and also the pitch. So right now it's trying to maintain a straight and level axis in all 3 axes. This is a locked mode. So remember, 3 presses will give you this locked mode. To return to straight and level in your semi-follow mode, just press once. And now you're back in the default mode, which is what we call semi-follow, which means it is locked in the pitch and locked in the roll, but it will follow in the yaw axis. Okay, this is your default mode when you switch on your stabilizer. Now, in all of those modes, remember you have the rear thumb mounted joystick. This is still working to change the pitch, which means the up and down. You can change the pitch up and down, and you can also change the yaw left and right with the rear thumb mounted joystick. The next mode we're going to look at is 4 presses. 4 presses will swap the roll and the yaw control. So remember your joystick right now, your rear joystick controls the pitch, which is the up and down tilting, and the yaw, which is the left and right. But in all of these modes, the roll axis will always stay straight and level. That's because when you use your stabilizer, usually you want your horizon line to stay straight and level. But if you press it 4 times, this will enable you to control the horizon. This will give you some interesting angles if you want to do something like following someone and doing some surreal kind of tilting left and right. For example, when you're running around corners and you want to tilt it to the left and right while you're following someone, this is an interesting new way of controlling your stabilizer. So 4 presses will swap the yaw axis for the roll axis. So we're going to try that now. 4 presses. Now you'll hear a different tone than usual. That means now that the yaw and the roll have changed, have swapped over. So if we use the rear joystick and we push the rear joystick to the left and to the right, now your camera will roll the horizon to the left and to the right instead of push the camera in a panning direction. So you'll see now that my horizon line is moving to the left and to the right. This is very good for some surreal angles when you're following someone. So instead of panning to the left and the right, now it tilts to the left and right. And if you want to return it to the standard mode, again, you just press the silver button 4 times in the front. You hear that quick tone again. That means that the roll and the yaw axis are swapped again. So now if I use the rear joystick, you'll see that it pans to the left and to the right in the yaw axis instead of tilts to the left and right in the roll axis. This means that it has swapped it back. One more mode that we have is a unique mode to this stabilizer, which is a time-lapse mode. Now, a time-lapse mode gives you 8 minutes of a yaw motion. So you can set your stabilizer in a starting and a finishing position, and then you will have an 8-minute move where it will yaw. It will pan from the left to the right, from the right to the left. Depends on where you set your starting and ending positions. In order to do that, you set your stabilizer in wherever you want it to be in the starting position. So I'm going to set it looking over at this wall, and then you press your button 5 times at the front. So 5 times, and you'll hear a series of ongoing tones. While these ongoing tones are sounding, you will then set it in your starting position, and by the time the tones have finished, it will lock in the starting position and it will move towards the end position. So this is where I want as the end position for my stabilizer. Then I press the button 5 times. And then you hear those tones. Now I'm going to pan it over to the opposite side. So I'm panning it to the opposite wall, and when the tones finish, that's where it locks the starting position of the stabilizer. Now, you won't be able to see it on camera very easily, but what it's doing now is it's working its way from the start position to the end position that you set when you powered on your stabilizer. So it's doing a very slow pan from left to right. And this will take 8 minutes. So you can time some kind of action to happen. It's very good, for example, if you're by the side of a road and you want to see cars going up and down the road, or people crossing road, or a busy junction. You can set it to pan across the junction from one side to another while it's working. So at the moment you see that I started it looking over at the other wall. It's already started to move towards the corner of the room. This will obviously take longer than this tutorial, but it takes 8 minutes to complete its motion. So right now it's attempting to make its way from the start position to the end position. So remember, you switch on your stabilizer, you set your stabilizer in whatever direction in the yaw axis you want as your final position. You press the button 5 times, and then you move the stabilizer to your starting position, whichever you want, over to the left or over to the right. And then it will take 8 minutes to go from that starting position to the finished position. Right now you can see it's almost going straight and level. This means that it's about a third of the way through the move. So that's a time-lapse mode. Remember, 5 presses activates the time-lapse mode. I'm just going to power off my stabilizer. So now it's stopped the time-lapse mode. One more function that we have is what's called an AllAxis freeze mode. This means that you can manually set where the stabilizer is pointing, and it will maintain that as your straight and level in any axis. In order to do that, I'm going to switch on my stabilizer, and I'm just going to press it once to set it straight and level again. So now it's back to straight and level on the stabilizer. Now, in order to activate this AllAxis freeze mode, I hit the button 3 times, and then I wait for a tone, and then I hit the button another 2 times. So it's 3 presses, wait for a tone, and then another 2 presses, and after that I will set the stabilizer in the position that I want it to be looking at, and it will freeze the motors in that position, and then whatever position it freezes in, that will be its straight and level. So I'm going to press the button 3 times, wait for the tone, then press it 2 more. Now you can set your camera in whatever axis you choose. Once I let go, now the motors are frozen in this position, and it considers this position is now straight and level for your camera, which means it tries to maintain the same axis that you just froze your camera in that position. So 3 presses, a tone, 2 presses, and then set the camera the way you want it. To return it to straight and level, you just press once on your stabilizer, and this goes back to the default mode. Now it's back to normal straight and level operation. So to recap the modes, when you switch it on and 1 press, this is what we call the default mode. It's locked in the pitch and it is locked in the roll, but it will follow in the yaw. That means when you twist the handle, it will follow by panning your camera to the left and right to attempt to follow where you're going. 2 presses is the same as 1 press, it's just a redundancy, a backup. That means it is semi-follow mode. That means it's locked in the pitch, it's locked in the roll, but it will follow in the yaw. If you press 3 times, that means it's locked in all 3 axes. It will not follow when you twist the handle, it will not follow when you tilt in the yaw and the roll, and it will not follow in the pitch. So now it's locked straight and level in all 3 axes. If I press 4 times, now it has swapped the yaw and the roll axis. This means now the joystick controller now tilts your camera instead of turning it to the left and the right. It now tilts the horizon to the left and the right. So this is 4 presses of your silver button, switches the yaw and the roll, and to switch it back you just press it 4 times again. You hear that special tone? That means that the roll and the yaw have now swapped back, so it is back to left and right yawing instead of left and right tilting in the roll axis. And 5 presses is your time-lapse mode. If you press 5 times, you'll hear those tones. Then if you set it, this is the starting position in the yaw axis, and then when the tones finish, it will take 8 minutes to go from this position to whatever position you had it in the beginning before you pressed 5 times. So it will take 8 minutes to do a very slow yaw from the left to the right, or from the right to the left, depending on where you set your finish and your start positions. So I'm going to switch that off, and I'm going to return this straight and level, switch it back on. And the last function is the all motors freeze mode, which is when you press it 3 times, wait for the tones, then press it 2 more, and then set the camera in whatever position you want, and then let go. And now this is the new straight and level for your camera. So now it tries to maintain that new position as the new straight and level. This is AllAxis freeze mode, which is very useful. And again, to return to straight and level, press the silver button once. And this now returns everything to normal straight and level positioning. So that gives you a quick summary and overview of all the modes. The next thing we will look at is using your handlebars, setting that up with the remote controller. And that should conclude your tutorials for setting up and using your SMG stabilizer.